So our first presenter today is Heidi Van. Heidi Van's an accomplished performer who acts, directs, produces, writes, and is a founder of the Fish Tank Theater. Her awards include being a UMKC Entrepreneurial Scholar, Rauschenberg Foundation Seed Grantee, Charlotte Street Foundation Fellow, and Arts KC Grantee. Ladies and gentlemen, Heidi Van.
Hello. I'm going to start a timer, but you might want to give me a high sign, because
Okay.
I know that I'm a bit long-winded. Hello, welcome. Thank you for inviting me to be here today. It's a pleasure. It's always fun to talk about art and business. It's one of my favorite things to do. I am, as I said, I'm Heidi Van, and I'm an actor, creator, and producer of contemporary experimental live theater. I opened a space in the Crossroads 7 years ago called the Fish Tank, and it's a space and it's also a concept, and we'll get to that in a little bit. I began my career with what I thought I wanted, which in the theater was just to keep working and to maintain in the conversation. I started as an actress, I evolved into a theater deviser, and then a recognized theater artist locally and nationally by receiving funding. And I'm also a graduate of the Del Arte International School of Physical Theater and the H&R Block School of Entrepreneurship and Innovation. And like I said, I started the Fish Tank. Kind of fell in my lap. The Fish Tank. An intimate black box theater in the heart of the Crossroads. It's a space to create, edit, and debut ideas. The material we perform at the Fish Tank is fresh, it's content progressive, and it's performers and writers committed to the aesthetic of risk-taking and failure. And I'm really proud. One of the things I'm most proud of is that I've cultivated and curated an audience that are willing to come and risk with me on this work that we present. Most of it is untried, it's untested, it hasn't been done in New York or Chicago or LA. We're trying it for the first time here. Not to mean that it's unprepared, but it just doesn't have a history. So that's part of the concept that goes with the Fish Tank. The Fish Tank also has a window space in which I've staged a lot of my projects. The quality of the performance transcends words with movement, and visual elements and music can convey humor without a script. I work with actors and dancers and musicians to create situations. Physicality and sets replace the familiar auditory crutch, and moving performance to the storefront window enforces silence and creates a new fourth wall. Concrete and glass become a wood stage and velvet curtain. And with the window plays specifically and all other plays that I produce, I consistently toying with the way that audience and performance meet. What brings theater to an audience? What brings an audience to a performance? This is an example of taking an intimate scene, as you saw before, placing it in the windows. So view of the audience watching from the street. Inside the Fish Tank is a intimate black box theater that accommodates up to 50 patrons. And at this point I want to impose a piece of kind of a ideology that was set on me as a student in my post-undergrad education at Del Arte. They told us that we were not just a vessel that needed filling. You're a creative artist, and your education is about discovering what size and shape you can stretch your vessel, rather than trying to pour our knowledge into an already established being. Your ability to change, your receptiveness to new ways of doing things, particularly things that you have done before, is essential to your development. And today that resonates with me more than ever as I expand my business to a new size and shape that is now a bit unknown. In the 7 years that I've inhabited the space at 1715 Wyandotte, I evolved from the black box theater to taking on another office space called the White Room, where we do administrative work, have creative conversations, private coaching, and conferences. I took over an upstairs space in the building that used to be a yoga studio. It's called the Aquarium. and it's this big open space that not only do I use, but other theater companies without a home rent it out for rehearsals, and also dancers and choreographers rent it out for private practice. At the time, I thought more artists being able to work in the space would generate more activity, that there would be a plethora of things going on at any time, and sometimes that's accurate. But I have a new plan moving forward. So last week I gave a talk of Creative Mornings about fantasy, which I thought was weird because in the theater we try to not deal in fantasy. We try to deal with truth and reality, and there's like real dollars and cents that go behind what we do. It's not just fantasy, it's my job. And so this is what I imagine imaginative conceptualizing looking like, and that's what I do. That's what I do every day. Fantasy is this other world that we think is unattainable, but it's actually just a goal. And under that goal, we need to have a strong infrastructure of supporters, of a plan. And the hardest thing to get to that fantasy, to that goal, is to pass through the liminal space, the space that lies between the known and unknown. And as an artist, entrepreneur, which I'm sure many of you have felt like you have a goal that is a fantasy, and to get there, you have to pass through this liminal space. It's a transitional space of heightened intensity that we experience when we traverse the threshold of the creative unknown. And that happens when we look at a blank piece of paper. That happens when we set a date in a calendar that's like, this is when I'm going to do the show. And then there's all that space to travel to get there. And this space can break you. And it's a hard one to get through. It feels like this sometimes. Letting go, putting your faith into your goal, and leaping out into the creative unknown. As I mentioned last week at Creative Mornings, I talked about the topic of fantasy, and what I discovered interpreting and preparing for that is that fantasizing is a necessary part of the creative process. And moving forward, this is how I feel. I have a vision right now for the fish tank to expand into a larger facility. So the space where I'm at no longer provides the structure for growth that's necessary for my specific structure for growth. Moving forward, the fish tank will maintain its residency upstairs at the 1717 Wyandotte, and we are actively in conversation with a new space within the neighborhood, which is super exciting. So I literally feel like this. And last night I feel like this, and when I leave I'm going to feel like this for probably the next 30 days until I figure out what's happening. But our final performance that will be in 1715 Wyandotte, which everyone should come to because it's nostalgic, is the 12 Plays of Christmas, which is a annual holiday performance that we put on every year. It consists of 12 original pieces by a company. This is our 4th year, and that takes place December 2nd through the 19th at 1715 Wyandotte. You can get tickets at fishtanktheater.com. And you can find out all about my plans and this ever so important fish tank expansion that is happening and always happening by looking up that hashtag or following Heidi Van or the Fish Tank on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all of those things. So this is a really short talk. I like to talk for a really long time. But so that's me and the fish tank. And I look forward to the conversation that we're going to have after the next one. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Heidi.
That's so fast. 7 minutes is so fast. Tell all my thoughts and feelings.
So we want to open up the floor now. If you have any.
I didn't know what was happening. Oh, this is my favorite part.
So, any questions, any comments? It can be about the art process, it can be about the business process, or where those two fuse. Feel free.
I think that I'm not an artist, I'm an attorney, and, but I think that liminal space idea that has, I guess, we're all creators, and we all have deadlines, and that's a really good thought.
Thank you.
That thought of like being between the cafes.
last week in my presentation, I had these other 2 slides about what the liminal space, what you want it to look like, and you were there. One of them was like this lush green field with flowers, and we're like, well, that's what we want that journey to look like. But the next one was actually this like dry, cracked land, and it's like that's what our fear does to us, and that's what the walls that we put in front of ourselves do to us. All of a sudden, we lose sight of that goal, and it's by our own sense of self-doubt, and it's by obstacles we actually put in front of ourselves. I've found this city to be extremely generous with information and with human resources. I'm moving forward looking for generosity for capital resources, which I know they're out there, especially in my strategic growth plan for the fish tank. I have a vision to create a theater that I will be in for the next 30 years, and that will sustain that growth. And I have to keep my eyes on that, otherwise I'll be that guy on the trapeze that goes woo, and I'm not gonna do that.
Yes.
So with the expansion, is it why does it no longer serve your needs?
There's part of this space that it's tricky being in an old building that I love. But our relationship sometimes is no longer symbiotic. Sometimes when my business is successful, the toll it takes on the building is financial. And sometimes the building inhibits my path for growth to be successful. And so I still have a season of 7 shows planned. I started producing theater and found spaces almost 20 years ago. So like my work will not continue, and I'm so happy that I found the aquarium upstairs, because that's my dream private practice studio. Like I have a space where I can continue to make work, and you know, if my current prize that I'm looking at doesn't come through in the new space that I'm currently looking at, then I will continue my work. The fish tank is a concept. It nurtures the development of new work, and it inspires theatrical entrepreneurship. It has been happy and lucky to be in one physical space for so long, and it needs to grow. It's ready to grow. It's a teenager. It wants more. Yes.
You spoke about your strategic growth. How do you move from actress, creator, performer to the business woman that you are?
I did it by just desire to want to be involved continually as an artist. And so a lot of the opportunities I got at the beginning were to be an actress, but my training is actually in devising new work and generating new material, which is another word for a playwright. So and most of the work that I created, I directed myself. And if I wanted it to be seen, I had to produce it myself. So throughout the process of wanting to create new work, present new work, and mount new work, I learned how to be a producer, and I love being a producer. And when I needed to understand something more, I went and sought out that information. 2 years ago, 5 years ago, when I was pregnant with my first child, Jeff Church from the Coterie, who's my mentor, reached out to me because he had heard about the Entrepreneurial Scholars Program on KCUR, and he's like, you should apply for this. And I'm like, are you kidding me? But I did it, and then I had, the application had a 2-week time base. And like I said, I was pregnant, and I was like, oh, I can't finish it. And then all of a sudden, Dr. Perry replied back, and he's like, you started this application. I think that this would be really good for you, and so I will give you 2 more weeks to finish it. And I was like, okay, like I have to do it now. So I did, and it was it was very different from Artist Inc. or any other sort of artist grooming business programs. But it's one of the best things I ever did, because it allowed me to evaluate my operation in producing a play, like, you know, as a business, which it is. But now when people come to me with projects, I mean, that's like, I look at it from beginning to end. Like, it's a product. Like the performance is the product, but the whole way that it gets to actually getting up to that point is the operation that I feel like I have expertise on. And so that's how I evaluate which projects I either, you know, if you want to rent the space and do that, or if I'm going to put my time in it, develop it. So, does that answer your question? Okay. Yes.
This is just a question for, like, if you're expanding you hope to further that, fostering new ideas and bringing maybe more opportunities in with the building, as in like new structure, different things? Like how you have the studio now, the white room, and the black box, and the windows.
Yeah.
Do you plan on bringing in more?
No, I imagine consolidating that into one space. Like I said, I'm going to keep the aquarium as a rehearsal hall, at least for the next year. But in the new space that I'm looking at, all of those things can be combined into one location. They can accommodate more patrons, and there's actually the opportunity for more revenue channels. There's a liquor license. It can be an event space. I can have a casual and live First Friday audience and monetize off of that bar. Like First Fridays has been a time for us in the Crossroads that sometimes we don't really make a lot of money. People just come and look at us. But like, that's when the most people will ever encounter my business. So like, a space will help me not only reach new audience, but also get them in the door, have them spending money, but also encounter take a little snapshot of the work that I do with them and come back. And like, I want to continue to maintain in the Crossroads because that place inspires me, and it's a destination. Like the Crossroads is now a destination, like once a month for random people. But I go there every day. That's where my office is, But I want my theater to continue to grow there, but just have the walls wide enough that it can, and it'll stay there. Yes.
How do you advertise or market or spread the word about your business and tell your story? What methods do you use?
Well, as a small company, a lot of the methods I use are free. Social media. We used to have a really good relationship with one of the writers from the Kansas City Star, so it was accessible to get a preview article, and like the necessity of getting your story in the Kansas City Star. Like I can actually see returns off of when that happens. That's been a little bit difficult lately. For a while, I did hire a PR firm so I kind of saw if that investment would work out monetarily. Which, if I don't have a lot of things going on at the same time, it really doesn't. But so now with them, I kind of work on a project basis, like when I have a really big thing to push. But I try as often as I can to do things like this, have articles. I pitch stories to a lot of different magazines and newspapers about what I'm doing. Also, trying to get into the other side of an arts conversation, but into a business conversation. Like, my audience in the arts field is a limited audience. So, and there's probably more potential patrons for me in another section of the paper who's not reading the section of the paper that I'm most often in. And so, yeah. And the hard thing is that I do all of this myself. So that's the hard part, is figuring out. The first time I did this presentation, the picture of me was me wearing a whole bunch of hats, and that's essentially what I do. So sometimes I have to pick what job I'm going to do that day. So, were you a mentor at the e-scholars program? That's right. Do you remember me? Okay. I'm like, you were so like, yes. Yes. Hello. Is Dr. Perry here today?
He's not here, but he's still with the university.
Okay, I was like, who's gonna be here today, or anybody else? Cool. Any other questions?
Heidi, I had the privilege of coming to see Young Black Victorian with one of your
Resident artists.
Resident artists.
Mhm.
Do you, to me, some of the things you've talked about, it's almost like you're an arts incubator.
Yes.
In a way.
Mhm.
So have you been able to use that as far as leveraging funds or different connections, that is what you do, also incubate young talent?
It has. I've received funding from the Richard J. Stern Foundation to support my internship program, which is in its 4th year, which is something I created out of just kind of necessity to have other people help me accomplish the tasks I needed to do to produce a play. So I assembled more people and also taught them, like nurtured them in a certain field, like, publicity or facility management, or this is a light board, or you need to go hang these posters everywhere. But at the same time, I teach them how to be mini producers. If they stay on, they become resident artists. And so I have 2 on right now. One of them is Rashidat Raz Badajo, who, because she'd been with me for so long, and she had an idea for a show, I said, write it, and I'll produce it, and I'll direct it. And she did it at the Fringe Festival last year. It's called Young Black Victorian. and we extended it for 2 weeks, and she's got the opportunity to do it again. It will be Jewel. But like these investments in people, like just in people and giving them the skills, like, you know, she's very loyal to the fish tank, but she has the opportunity to take that show somewhere else, and like the fish tank and I, our names are on it because we developed it and directed it. So we're part of that. Also, I developed this program called the Legacy Program, that's inspired by my relationship with the Robert Rauschenberg Foundation. Robert Rauschenberg believes in like, you know, sustaining the integrity of things and also his legacy. So there are 2 companies in town that needed a home, that needed a space to begin, like, because it's really hard when you are a new company to work out of your house, right? And who works out of their house? It's really hard. It's really hard because you're distracted by dishes and laundry and cats and dogs and children. And so the Black Repertory Theater of Kansas City and Tradewinds, the Pan Asian Artist Collective, I reached out to them and said, I want to create this program called the Legacy Program, and I want you to use the fish tank for office rehearsal and performance space, free of charge. In my mind, that's also something that I go to other places. So it makes me different, my differentiation strategy. Like I nurture people, and I'm an incubator for new artist entrepreneurs, and especially for these new companies that have a place in our community that aren't represented. So, you know, I expand my program based on the needs of the community, but also, you know, hope to reach out to funders to be like, we're all in here together. Like funding one of us funds all of us, especially in that particular instance. I don't know.
So
I could go all night.
I don't know why I
These are so,
keep
you have to like hug these. This is really weird. Yeah.
We have no more time.
I know.
But we have what we call the
Go
Guildit question,
Yeah.
and we ask all of our presenters this at the end of the Q&A for their presentation. So what is it that we in this room and the Kansas City community in general can do to help you do what you are doing and succeed?
Yes, so you can come to the 12 Plays of Christmas. You can do that. You can come and see the work that we do with the fish tank. But you can also find out about us online, and especially at this point when we have such a plan to move forward, you know, we're meeting with architects, we're coming up with a budget, like you can donate any amount of money. That will help this vision move forward, and that will help us continue to operate for the next 30 years plus. I just say 30 years because maybe I'd retire after that time, but I'm not going to. So anyway, just come to, and it's for any artist. Come see our work, experience our work, and oftentimes for us performing artists that has a ticket fee, and that is great. You can start there. Start by buying a ticket. So thank you.